Well, good morning or good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. It could actually be a very early good morning. I think if you're in London, congratulations. If you're still awake in London at 1 a.m, I do apologise about the time zone. Welcome to today's free training. I'm very, very excited to present it to you. And today we're going to talk about some simple steps to getting creative in your piano teaching. And I think this is just such a fantastic opportunity for teachers, particularly those who haven't before done anything creative in their lessons and have that classical training background. This can be a fantastic opportunity for you. So just while we wait for people to come online and come on air, I'd like to suggest you grab a cake, wine, coffee, tea, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world at the moment, and make sure you're comfortable. And one of the most important things too, I think, is to make sure you turn off your phone. Try to avoid checking your Facebook. Try to shut doors, keep kids away if you possibly can. It's just an hour's worth of training and you're going to get a lot from it, but only if you really focus on it. So I implore you to do that. Now, for those of you who are new to webinars, please note that there'll be times when you can see me and there'll be times when you can just hear me. This being one of those times. I'll turn my camera on in just a moment. But while we're waiting for a few other people to jump into the call, please, you'll see a chat box on the right-hand side, and I can see some people have already started welcoming themselves. Alice, Bethany, and Pam, welcome. Please pop your name in there and say hello. Let us know where you're from. And also, if it's your first webinar, just leave a note to that effect too. It'd be great. Good to see a number of familiar faces too from people who've been here before. Linda and Anna, Jacinta, hello. Matthew, hey Matthew, 9 a.m. in Perth. You've got to be happy with that time compared to the last webinar I think you came on, which was about 5 a.m. Good to see Carl and Lou, Susan, Daniel. Oh, we've got heaps of people. We've got well over 100 people already on, so that's fantastic news. So let me introduce myself. My name is Tim Topham. That's me there. Hello, I'm in my little piano studio here in Melbourne, Australia. And I'm a music educator and a podcaster. I've got a blog and I do some speaking at conferences as well. And my passion really is all about helping teachers get more creative in their teaching. That is what I love to do, and it's what I want to help you do better today. One of the things that I think is most important in music education is an approach that covers all different kind of styles and opportunities for students. So whereas many of us were brought up in a classical tradition, as was I at the beginning, although my teacher, who may even be on this call, hello Rosemary if you're there, my teacher was very open to teaching me all different styles of music. A lot of us have that classical upbringing, which really limits the kinds of things that we can do in our teaching because we're only taught a certain way and most of us tend to teach the way we were taught. So I guess my goal today is to kind of see where we're at the moment and see a path down classical tradition continuing. I'll teach the same way as I've always taught over there, and a diversion, a tangent, I guess, down well, maybe I can do something a little bit more interesting. We've got lots more hellos coming in from people all over the place. Lisa from Canada, hello. Joanne from New South Wales. More people from sunny Perth. I've obviously chosen the time right there. We've got someone from Alberta, Canada. Katrina, you're a long way away. Welcome. Susan from Auckland as well. Great to have another Susan in Colorado too. Great to see you all here. Now, we all know too that the kids aren't the same today as they were perhaps, even 10 years ago, probably, definitely 20 years ago. Things are different. Technology has impacted things in a huge way. And kids have different expectations as well, don't they? They know what they want and they expect to get it. And they expect to get it now, of course. And I think this is one of the bigger challenges we have in our teaching is that if we teach in much the same way as we always have, we're going to lose these kids. And that's why I'm incredibly passionate about helping teachers teach in this slightly more creative way, because I think, pretty sure, when you teach in a creative way, you're going to appeal to more students and you're going to keep them coming. And that is just so important. And I'm going to talk through a few more ideas about that in just a moment when I head back to the slides. But I did want to welcome, we've got Scott from New Jersey. Hey, Scott. Joanne from a humid Brisbane. It's nice and cool down here today, Joanne, which is nice. I know Sydney siders have been having about 40 degrees. That's well over 100 Fahrenheit for those in the States. So we've been having some fun times over here. And I think you guys in the States, it's probably very cold for many of you, trudging through snow, etc. So it's so great to have so many people on the call. And lovely to welcome lots of new names too, who I haven't seen before. And we've got Irina as well. Good morning from Melbourne too. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip back to my slides now, just to give you a little overview of a few things that we're going to be talking about today. Before we do that though, I'd like you now to take a second to type in the chat box, now that we've introduced ourselves, what does a win look like for you today? So what would you most love to achieve by the end of this 1 hour session? What would you like to know the most? Can you put it in? It needs to be really short because I'm not going to have time to read them all. A really quick little win. What would you like to be able to achieve from today? I'd love to read a few of those as we continue on today. It was great to read the survey responses too. As many of you saw on the sign up registration page, there was a survey which just indicated where people were at in their creative teaching journey out of 10. If you filled that out, thank you very much. We've got many newbies on the call today. So I'm going to be starting at the beginning and moving through some ideas that will hopefully capture many of you. So Patricia, we've got easy ideas to share with students. You'll definitely get that. Paul wants just a skill he can use with his students today. That's it. Make your learning easier. Kate's talking about retaining students. I'm right on with you, Kate. Pam, composing with the blues. Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover today. The toolbox is going to be full of great new ideas, that's for sure. Anthony, improve for students. I think you meant improv. We're definitely covering that. Karen wants to enhance her teaching methods. And it's a great time of the year, isn't it, Karen, to do that. Right at the start of the year, you can just do whatever really you want. And lots of fun here. Fun. Well, we're definitely going to have some fun today. Understanding chords. Brilliant. We'll cover that too. Giving students more tools. Oh, that's absolutely great. I think we're right on the money with each other today, guys. By the looks of what you're looking for, I think I'm going to provide that win for you today, but I'm going to check in with you a bit later on to make sure that's the case. Sarah wants to retain the teenage boys. Well, Sarah, as you know, that's definitely a passion of mine, helping boys learn piano and keeping them motivated. So I think this will definitely, in fact, I know for a fact, this will be a win for you and your teenage boys, definitely. Okay, so let's cover what I'm planning to cover today, just so you know right from the beginning the kinds of things that we're going to be looking at. We're going to talk very quickly at the start about why creative teaching is so important. And for those of you who might have listened to my podcast last week, went out on Friday, please do check in. If you're not a podcast listener, then this is just such a brilliant way of absorbing content while you're at the gym or going for the walk or cooking dinner for the kids, whatever it is. Listening to the podcast is great. You can find out all about that, timtopham.com/podcast. The reason I mention that is because I talked about this very topic last week on Friday's episode. We're going to talk about the benefits of a more creative approach, and a number of the comments that are coming through now about enjoyment and fun, all that kind of stuff, is going to be one of those benefits. We're going to talk about exactly how to teach a creative lesson using the 12-bar blues. So I'm going to show you about teaching chords and basic progressions. And while we're going to focus on the 12-bar blues, it's the kind of teaching that I use in a non-jazz sense as well. So just giving kids that background to chords. And that is actually one of my planned webinars in the future, is talking about the non-jazz approach to teaching about chords and pop music. We're going to explore the blues scale, or one of the blues scales, as a way of improvising. And I'm going to show you the one app that I use above all others. I know many of us go to workshops and conferences, and one of the sessions, it seems, in the last 5 years is always, and I'm sure it will be for the next 5, about what apps to use in your piano lesson. And they're great sessions, but the thing I know frustrates everyone is that you can't do it all, and it's overwhelming. There's too many apps out there. Which ones do I choose? Well, I'm just going to give you one, and this is the app that I use more than any other. So I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, make sure you stick around to the end of the call, because I'm going to give you 3 bonuses. The first bonus is lesson plan number 1 in my blues teaching sequence. I'm going to give you lesson plan number 2 and also lesson plan number 3. So this is at least 3 weeks worth of content for your students with, as you can see on the screen, full scores and notes and homework for them to do as well. You'll also get, as always, if you've been on one of my webinars before, I think it's very important that we keep track of our certificates of professional learning, the learning that we do. This is the sort of thing that you can show parents. And one day, maybe down the track, when we all need to register as teachers, if that happens, it's a good thing to have too. For example, I mean, some of us are member of teaching boards. I'm a certified classroom teacher, and we have to show certificates for the training that we've had each year to keep current. Same with nurses and things. Now, as piano teachers around the world, we don't have to do that, but I think it's still important. So I hope you will grab your copy of the certificate at the end. So I'll give you a link to all of those right at the end of this webinar. All right, now, if you lose audio or video, then there's a button down the bottom which says reconnect. So if you're finding everything's choppy or you can't hear me properly, then chances are the first thing to check is that your teenagers in the house aren't downloading movies or playing games. So everyone off the internet, as I have today, make sure no one else is using it. Click the reconnect button then, and you should be okay, hopefully, today. Alice is just wondering if it started. Yes, it has started. So hopefully the reconnect button will fix that up. And if your sound is doubled or anything out of sync, then reconnect and just make sure no one else is using your internet. Okay, so you've all found the chat box on the right-hand side, which is awesome. During the course of today's content, feel free to write a question in there. However, because I'm going to be at the piano demonstrating this, I don't want to keep looking at the questions and necessarily interrupting my flow. So if you've got a really important question that you would like to ask, then I'll also do a Q&A session right at the end. So I'll then actually turn and check out all the questions and make sure I go through them one by one, because I do want to use this chance to answer everyone's questions, okay? But do keep that in mind. I can't keep an eye on the chat box during the whole presentation, unfortunately. Okay, so let's talk about this. Why is creativity important? In my opinion, students need a variety of musical experiences. If the main way you teach is through technique and reading and performing, then in my opinion, you're only giving students a very small outlook on the world of music. A truly varied musical experience will obviously include music of all different types and styles. It will include experiences involving accompanying or playing along to backing tracks. It will include creative pursuits, so encouraging students to be able to make up their own music. And, you know, really the experience of music has got to be encompassing, playing by ear, playing without music, all of these kinds of things. So I think that's why creativity for me is so important. A number of people have also talked about the fact that it's getting harder to motivate students. So if you're finding student motivation is challenging for you, then I would question the things that you're doing in your lessons. Really, to me, there's only a couple of keys to a really successful piano lesson. One is, so I'm just noting the chat. There's a few people having a few issues getting on. One is rapport with your student, and two is the kinds of things that you do in your lessons. And so this creative pursuit, the thing about it is that the more creative you can become in your lessons, the more variety students get, the more you can do those things that they need to do. For example, technical work or scales or learning some Baroque music they might not like so much. If that's all you're doing, then motivation becomes hard. But if in your lessons you break that up with a whole lot of other stuff, then you've got a plan for motivation, because while they're doing some of the things you want them to do, you're also helping them do the things that they want to do. And that comes down, to me, to ownership. Students having some ownership of their lessons. 30 years ago, 40, maybe more, teachers in all walks of life, classroom and independent music teaching, were the wise old wizards sprouting information for their students and expecting them to write it down. This is no longer the case in any field in education, and thank goodness, to be honest. I mean, students don't need us to tell them something they can find on Google. What they need us to do is encourage them to explore, to ask questions, to ask the right questions, to find the right information, to work on projects and to inspire. These are the things. So students, we don't need to just tell them everything that they need to learn in their lessons. There's an element of that, but there's a big element now of students being able to choose some aspects of their lessons. And I think that is one of the keys to motivation, and the creative element can come into that. It's also great to have a backup plan for lessons, right? So let's say you're a traveling teacher and for some reason you've forgotten all the important stuff you need to teach your students lessons. Well, excuse me, something like the blues, brilliant for that, because you don't need any music, you don't need any resources or anything except your phone and an iPad or a phone, something with the app that I'm going to mention to you on it. It's also great, this kind of creative, being able to just pull something out of your hat creatively is also great for when students haven't practiced, or students are in a bad mood, or they're sad, or some other kind of reason that you can just tell when they come into a lesson, working on a Beethoven sonata is just not going to work. So forget it. Do something different. Here's today's content, which is going to help you with that. So let's now cover a few of the benefits. Okay, firstly, it's fun, right? Everyone, well, so many people in the comment that I asked before for feedback on said they want to do something that's fun. And look, the great thing is that teaching the blues is fun for you and it's fun for the student. Win-win, right? And look, personally, I couldn't think of anything more horrendously boring than teaching the same way every day, teaching the same music every year. I wouldn't be a piano teacher if that was the case. I love just breaking out of the mold and doing things that are a bit wacky, a bit crazy. My students love it too. It's all about fun. But more than that, students gain a deeper understanding of music, right? If students understand that scales are just a way of creating an improvisation or creating melody, and that's where melody comes from, and in fact, that's where chords come from, and chords are the basis of music, then giving them some of these creative ideas, like let's play a chord progression, let's improvise with a pentatonic scale or a blues scale, they can start to see and understand how music's put together. And that is so fundamental to a solid musical education. Doing some more creative things also encourages your students to be a little bit more curious and to explore more. I love nothing more than a student that asks, and I help them start to ask the question, I wonder what would happen if, or what would this sound like if, or why do I like this chord progression, or why is this pop song so cool? These are the kinds of questions I want students to ask and then help them find the answer to. That's where I can be most use to them, not just coming in to a lesson, correcting their mistakes, giving them the next few bars and pushing them on their way. I want them to be curious and to explore. And it also gives them this chance to explore different styles of music. And while most of us will teach Baroque, classical, romantic, and some modern stuff, I'm talking about the fact that with a little bit of creative thinking, we can show students, for example, as you'll explore in lesson 3 with the handout that I'll give you, left-hand patterns and the impact that knowing a few left-hand patterns can have on the ability to change the sound of a piece of music. So I'm not just talking about playing music from different eras. I'm talking about understanding why music from different eras sounds like it does. Why does Alberti bass sound classical? And what makes a tango a tango? These are the kinds of things that I love exploring in lessons with students, and the things that I want them to do without me. And finally, students get to make connections. So when they're given some non-reading exploring of chords and progressions, they can start to make connections between the music that you're teaching them and the music that they listen to all the time. For example, today we're going to cover the C chord, F, and G chords. Now, with just one other chord, the A minor chord, students will soon realize that they could play 4-chord pop songs very, very easily, right? So we're starting to make connections. And if you're ever wondering about this idea of motivation, then if students can find relevance and connections between the kinds of things they're learning in their piano lessons and the music that most of them will listen to, then you have hooked the student in to wanting to find out more. Oh, one other thing, takes the pressure off you for a moment too. When you're having students and you're continually waiting for them to make a mistake and then correct them and show them how to do something right, which I hope isn't the way you teach, but I know it is the way some people teach. It's the pressure's on you to make sure you get that right, and you're always kind of coming up with new ideas and suggesting new ways of interpreting. When you do something creative like this, the pressure's off you. Give them a few ideas, and then you can just let them go with it. I mean, to me, that's what fun in music is all about. So I reckon we'll start playing. I hope that sounds all right with you. And I can see that a few people have got their links fixed and things. Liz, I do know it's Super Bowl Sunday in the USA. Someone did tell me about that. Sorry to the guys who might be missing the big game, but you can always, I know many of you will be grabbing the replay as well. So that's why I'll send you a link to the replay for everyone who is on the call and those who haven't been able to make it. And I think we've got, well over 150 people today right now live in this call. So I'm just going to make a start and show you exactly what to do. And you can do this for the next lesson with any student of pretty much any age, although I think this works best for 8+. And it's a great transfer student lesson too. So if you want to do something where you get the opportunity to see what a transfer student can actually do, see what their rhythm's like, how musical they are, then this is, again, another great idea for that. Okay, so in order to teach the blues, students need to know three things. They need to know 3 chords, right? And triads, most of you will be aware of a triad being a stack of notes. So in the case of C major, C, E, and G. And I tend to use fingers 1, 3, and 5. Some students like 1, 2, and 4. Some students will like 1, 2, and 3. For the purposes of a creative lesson like this, I'm not so fussed about technique, as long as kids aren't going to injure themselves or do something horrendous. If they want to do whatever's comfortable to have that quick win today, that's okay. We can always adjust their fingering later on. Remember that as professional musicians who are playing hard repertoire, we will be using all sorts of different fingering for a 3-note triad. So it's almost good that they have different ideas about fingering. Okay, so we're going to actually show them just with the right hand the 3 chords: C chord, F, and G. Now, of course, that's really boring, right? And students aren't going to actually do that for very long. So what I tend to do is grab out a pen and a bit of paper. And this is about the only bit of resource you really need other than the app I'm going to show you, which on its own isn't actually essential, but is a good idea. So, and just on the bit of paper here, I'm going to write out the chord progression for the 12-bar blues. And you'll get this in the lesson plan download, but it's pretty much C's, F's, and G's. They're only the chords they need. So I'll write that down in front of them, and we can start playing now the chord progression. And it's pretty straightforward. I tend to always get them to hold some kind of pulse, always feeling a pulse. I don't know about you, but how many times students ready to play, and it's like the minute you stop speaking, it's like, and they're straight into it. There's no breath. They haven't thought about how fast or slow they're going to play it, and often it's quite wrong, right? The speed at which they do play it. So one thing I do get them to do right from the beginning is feel a pulse. Doesn't really matter how fast or slow it is, as long as they're feeling it, and count in. So we're going to play through the chord progression: C, 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 F, F, C, C, G, F, C, C. You'll get copies of these lesson plans as part of the bonus, Rudy, and others who might be wondering about that. So don't feel you've got to take hours and hours of notes or anything. I'm going to give you these lesson plans as they are. All right, so we're going to play the chord progression. So it's going to go like this: 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. F chord now. They can move up or down. Back to C. 1 G, 1 F, and 2 C's to finish. And that is the 12 bars of the 12-bar blues structure. So that's not all that interesting. So you really want to do a few different things. And really, for me, the next best thing to do is grab out the app on your phone called iReal Pro. I'll actually just type it into the chat box for anyone who hasn't heard of it before. iReal Pro. This is a download that you can grab from the App Store or the Android Store. So this is available on any phone. Doesn't have to be iPhone or Apple. Any phone or tablet this app is available on. And what this app does, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is it takes a chord progression. So I'll see if I can bring it close to the camera for you. So you can see that that's a little chord progression. That's a 12-bar blues progression there. It takes a chord progression and it just creates a rhythm section out of it. That's all it does, but it's really good for it, right? So I'm actually going to play this so you can hear how it sounds. And you can see I've got 2 speakers up here. These are Logitech speakers. If you're interested in the resources that I use, these apps and speakers and that kind of stuff, then you can head to my blog. There's a resources link right at the top at timtopham.com. Go to that resources link and you'll find out which sound system I recommend. Whatever you do, when you come to using backing tracks in piano lessons, don't use the internal speaker in your phone or the iPad unless it's absolutely essential. Because the sound quality just isn't good enough, okay? One thing that's become really popular, though, is those wireless Bluetooth speakers. They often look like kind of cylinders, bright colors and things like that. They are really, really cool. And for a traveling teacher, brilliant. You can just chuck them in your bag. They're kind of this size. Well, they're all different sizes, but most common ones. I can't remember the brand. If you can remember the brand, chuck it on your in the chat box. They're just really funky and they just connect wirelessly. And they're much better than nothing. The thing I love about this Logitech system, which I use, is down here, there's a big subwoofer. It's about this kind of size, and that gives you the bass that kids really love. Okay, so I'm now going to play along the chords to this, and this is what I get your students to do. Okay, and you get the idea of how that works, okay? Now, at the moment, for the student it's not too interesting. We need to keep making it more interesting. Thanks, Paul. I can just see you've written U-E-Boom, and JBL has a great one too. Thanks, Maria. What I next get them to do is do the chords in both hands. And they're going to go down low on the piano because we're eventually going to turn what we do with our left hand into a walking bass. So it's going to sound a little bit muddy, and that's okay. It's going to sound like this, but I'm going to get them to do the whole progression now with chords in both hands, like this. The F chord, or they could move hands together, etc. Again, backing track goes on. I just use it pretty much every time they play. Okay, and you can hear in the app too that there's a piano. So there's piano, drums, and bass, right? There's a setting in the app you can actually turn the piano down. So if you listen to it, you got the pianist playing the chords. You can actually turn that off if you prefer when the kids get to know it, and they can be doing the chording instead. Okay, so the next thing to do is to break up the left-hand chord. So we're going to play an arpeggiated bass line, and this is what I call the simplest kind of walking bass. So and then we move to F. And one thing you'll have to explain to your students is that or you may do, it depends. This is where it's really fun to work out where their rhythm's at, because some students will naturally work out that the cycle doesn't finish before they jump to the next chord, because we'd have a 5-beat bar, right? Some students won't naturally get that. Other students will get it. So that's a great opportunity to then talk about, well, the fact that each cycle doesn't quite go back to the pinky finger. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, because they're going to get really into a complete mess if they do that. Okay, so now they can hold the chord in the right hand and they can do the walking bass in the left hand. Backing track goes on. Here we go. Okay, and as you can tell, I can't help myself but play some things offbeat and add little bits in my left hand. But that's the simple way to get started with the chord progression for the 12-bar blues. And you can hear it's already heaps of fun. Kids love doing, well, just this simple amount so far. Now, some of you are probably wondering about little hands, so kids with small fingers or ones who can't play these triads very comfortably. So what I would suggest you do in that case is just use thirds in the right hand. So we could just do this. If they are having trouble with the walking style, then they don't have to worry about it. Just hold one note down the left hand. So it could be a C. Now, of course, in these chords, we're not adding sevenths or anything like that yet. We're really keeping this simple for the students because we want them to have real quick wins and to be able to get the feeling for it. And I don't want to give them too much that they've got to write down all these notes too. What we're doing so far is really easy for them to remember. Okay, so on to the kind of second part of what I would call one lesson on the 12-bar blues. So the first thing to do is get them to understand this chord progression for the 12-bar blues. They need to know it inside out. And for about 15 minutes of, let's say, a 30-minute lesson, that can be the content that you're covering. So in the second half of the lesson, what I move on to do is explain to them the notes of the C blues scale. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, the notes are C, and I'd actually write this out. I've written my chord progression for the blues here, right? So I'm actually just going to write out the notes of the C blues scale. C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, and C. All right, and these are the notes that they're going to use to improvise over this chord progression. And it's just so simple, right? Any of these notes are going to sound cool, and I'll show you why and how in just a moment. I should mention too that this is one of the types of blues scales out there. My good friend Bradley Sowash, who's a jazz master far more than I am, mentioned that this is known as the minor blues scale. There is a major blues scale as well, and there's probably other types too. But for simplest sake, for simplicity, I just call it the blues scale, okay, for now. All right. Now, if your student has previously learned a chromatic scale, this, they will already know the fingering 1 and 3. 3 on the black note, thumb on the white notes. If they already know that, then I would get them to use that fingering for this set of notes, the blues scale. So we've got the notes C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, and C. And all the student needs to do is just go up and down this scale a couple of times to get used to it. And look, there's a number of ways of approaching how this looks. Students could memorize the notes as a set. They could see, someone in my community actually recently talked about, they teach it by triangles, right? C and E flat, C and B flat look like this on the piano as a collection of white and black notes. C, E flat, C and the B flat. It's like a triangle. And then in the middle, there's another little triangle, F, F sharp, G, another little triangle. So they might remember it like this kind of thing. I thought that was, sorry, can you say, hard to see. So two kind of triangles. I also think it looks a little bit like it's kind of like the outside of a house. If a kid was going to draw a house, here's C and E flat, there's B flat and C, and then in the middle you've got a little chimney. There's my house. You get the idea. Whatever it is, try and find a way that connects with your student and they understand this pattern of notes, because they're going to need it and they're going to need to know it really, really well up and down the piano. Okay, so backing track goes back on and I'm going to play the blues scale up and down the piano a couple of times. And this is what you should get your students to do. And down again. And that's just a way of practicing the set of notes up and down the piano. And I'd go sort of 2 octaves up and down. I mentioned before the fingering I use 1 and 3, like a chromatic scale, and I encourage students to do the same thing. If they're going, just for, again, for the sake of simplicity and easy to remember, that's what I would do. You might like to take a different approach with the fingering, totally fine, but that's the way that I tend to go. All right, so the student is able to do that. We need to give them a little bit more flexibility now. So this time I'd tell them, all right, you can repeat notes, you can go up and down, you can change the order a little bit, have a bit of fun with it. But make sure you're feeling a pulse. By the way, if the student is a little bit slower and needs to work on this a little bit longer, then just get them to play the scale along with the backing track, but hold the notes for 2 counts each. So they'll go 1, 2, bum, 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 get the idea? So again, depending on the level of your student, just keep adjusting things as you go. All right, Catherine, thank you for the Sharpie tip. I do have a, I've got a drawer full of texts somewhere, but anyway, hopefully it'll be enough to say. I'm not going to be writing down too much more today anyway. All right, so the student can now kind of go up and down and back to front and whichever way they want to go. Here we go. And I just made a mistake. Did everyone hear it? I played a B natural. Breaking my own rules. And of course, if students do this, you go, wow, how cool was that? Jazz, man. That's what jazz is all about, all right? So if you hear students, as they're exploring this, make sure that if you hear anything that's really good in their improvising, that you tell them about how good that little bit sounds. So a student might do, actually, just in a little improv that I did then, I kind of like that kind of idea. What you'll find is students are concentrating so much on what they're actually doing and trying to play the right notes, because that's what music teachers want, right? They won't actually be listening much to the output. And so they'll miss something like that. That's a really cool, what we'd call in jazz, a lick, a little motive that sounds good and we should keep in our repertoire. So when students are just grooving along and I hear them do something like that, I'll go, hey, yes, do that, do some more of that, do some more of that. And they get that idea that they need to start listening to what they're doing for one. And, you know, this is an issue with lessons the world over in all different styles, right? Kids playing and really not listening so much to what they're doing, something we've got to all got to work on. Actually, something that students have to work on. If they don't hear it and they do something cool, then please let them know and ask them to repeat it. And so often after that first round of them exploring different directions that they want to go, I'll say, all right, now let's do it again. And I want you to do more of this. And I want you to remember any other cool stuff that you do. All right, and then we'll play through it again. Meanwhile, by the way, I'm either at another piano, if you've got 2 pianos in your studio, or just down low on the same piano as the student. Always play along with them. Like keep exploring things with them. So I might be just doing this kind of thing. So this chord shape is one that I'll teach you all in one of the later lessons. Is just a really cool sounding C chord that stays out of the way of what the students are doing. Or I might do which is what I call my blues walk up, and that I'll show you where you can find out more about that as well. So keep playing with them. Make it a fun thing that you guys do together, you and your student, because you're going to have a laugh. You're going to make a mistake. They're going to make mistakes. Like if you're just going to sitting there going, all right, now do this, and sitting back and listening, it's not going to be nearly as fun as if you're actually grooving along with them at the piano. And if you haven't got space or you're not confident, just do this. Okay, so it's not too difficult to start having an ensemble, I guess, with your student and the backing track. So there's really 3 elements they have to listen to and work with right from the beginning. So even when they're just doing the first chords, one-handed, I'm playing down the bottom. And maybe some little groovy syncopation would sound good too. Okay, so they've started to move up and down the scale and they're playing along. They're noting down, hopefully they're listening, and they're noting down when they're finding some cool riffs or licks so that they can keep on adding them to their playing. So let's do one run full through of the 12-bar blues, as a student should be able to do, an average student should be able to do by the end of their first lesson. Note, I'm not doing anything with my left hand. That was cool. Yeah, do more of that, yeah. And I just want to keep grooving because this is fun, right? Can you hear how easy it is to sound like you know what you're doing, really? You and your students, right? I am not a jazz specialist by any means. I've had some lessons when I was much younger. You know, this is really very simple and it's quite formulaic, but I think that's why it works so well. And I can guarantee if you try this in your lessons next week or this week with your students, you will have success. I have not had anyone come back since I released this course 2 weeks ago who have said, oh, Tim, that is just such a disaster. No one liked it. It was awful. Thankfully, by the way, I know this stuff works because I've done it with my students hundreds of times, okay? Can you also see how with a transfer student, for example, you can quickly get a sense of where they're at with their rhythm, whether they can play in time, whether they're listening to what they're doing. These are skills you want to know in that first lesson, right? So this is just such a great way to do that. All right, you can learn so much about your students from an activity like this, and that's why I'd always say a first lesson. Please, anyone listening to this or watching this webinar, first lessons for students. If they're a transfer student, then there shouldn't be any reading, I don't think, well, for at least the first lesson, maybe even a few lessons. Just get to know the student, what they like, ask them what they would like to learn, maybe help them with a pop song if they like a pop song, or an easy arrangement of a classical tune if they want to do that. Work with them, just explore stuff. Don't jump straight into reading. And I would really implore you too, if you're a teacher of beginners, young beginners, stay away from the music. Just right away from the music for at least a few lessons. Just explore stuff. If they're really little kids, then do little animal improvisations with little ants running around and elephants stomping down the bottom or something, do something like that. Please don't open up a method book because it's just a great way to kill enthusiasm, particularly in little beginner kids. And if it's teenagers and adults, then you really want to stay away from the reading for a little while. Just work with them on stuff that they want to learn. Otherwise, you'll lose them very, very quickly. And you're right, Lindell, develops relationships. This is the way to build rapport. And I mentioned right at the start, those two key things to a really good piano lesson is rapport with your student and the kinds of activities that you're doing, right? This is a great way to build rapport. And grooving along with them on the 12-bar blues, wow, absolute winning situation. Okay, so they can now play the chords. Probably not like that. It'll be like this. Sorry. I got to remember to not funk things up too much by mistake. All right, so they can do that along to the backing track. They can also, right? They can do some basic improvising. Now, the problem we've got is that this takes 2 hands. And this takes 1 hand, right? So how many hands altogether do the kids need to do this blues thing? 3. Okay, now we've got a problem, haven't we? It's a little bit like the conundrum of pop music. Those pop music arrangements have a piano score, right and left hand, and then they have the melody up in the vocal line. So we've got a little bit of a problem. Easy solution. Every kid these days has one of these. If not, their parents will. And these things are brilliant for recording. So as you'll see in the lesson plan that you're going to get access to at the end of this webinar, I list some home practice suggestions for this lesson 1 and 2 stuff. The thing that I would encourage them to do, and what I get my students to do, is record themselves playing the backing chords and get them to repeat it over 4 times maybe, and record it and keep in steady pace and make sure they're playing the chord progression absolutely in time and correct to the actual structure of the blues. Then all they need to do is get their headphones, plug them into their phone, press play, and they can improvise over the top of their chord progression. Or they can put it through some speakers if they have them. This is great because this doesn't even need iReal Pro. The student doesn't even need to have this backing track with them. All right, so they can do that, and they can be their own band just with the use of an iPad or an iPhone or some kind of phone. However, I have also exported a copy of this Blues in C track, and you can grab that right now from timtopham.com/blues, where I actually give you these first 2 lessons, the actual how to do them, me teaching them in front of a piano, and you can see over the top of my hands as well. And there's a link on that page to grab the blues backing track, which you can just send the child and they can go home and play along to it if you want. And also the chord chart that you can load into iReal Pro, because this chord chart isn't one that comes with the app, but I've already made it for you. It's very easy to load in. Okay, now I can see a couple of comments have come up here. You need to explain to parents why you're doing this as well. Yeah, I put out a blog post a couple of weeks ago about unstructured practice and the ways I talk to parents about why I get students to do what I call unstructured practice. So I'm moving more and more to a situation with students where I'm giving them full permission to practice, have 1 practice a week that is of no planning, it uses no music, it is just a creative pursuit. And this is the kind of thing that I would give them ideas in which that they can do during that time. So you're absolutely right, Paul, and Alison's asking for a PD for parents, telling them that books aren't imperative. They are the ones who need to know. That's about the beginners, I think, Alison. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But when it comes to teaching in this way, you do have to get the parents on side. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Guys, you're absolutely right. You need to have a conversation with parents, particularly if this is something that you've never done before, and particularly if the parents are a little bit on your case about the importance of just exam after exam or whatever it is, right? We've got to have conversations with parents about this, otherwise they just don't understand. And I hope that you've got enough ideas today about why, and you can tell them those benefits that I've given you guys today about why this is just so important for students. So look, I hope that's given you a really good overview of the kinds of things that you can do with the 12-bar blues teaching. And look, unfortunately, we're running out of time for me to go too much more in depth into this, but I did want to let you know where you can find out more information about this, right? And I've actually recorded this lesson that I've been giving you today is parts 1 and 2 of a 10-part video training series that I've got. All the videos are about 15 minutes or less, all about teaching the blues. And I'm really, really proud that I can let you know where to find those, and that's in my InnerCircle teaching community. Now, there were 2 big reasons that I decided to create this community, and one of them was, you know, this isolation that we all find as piano teachers. How good is it that 160, 70 people can be on this call live right now around the world, when normally we're quite isolated in our teaching, of course. So I really wanted to create a space where teachers could come together and share all the best ideas, because, you know, I don't have every answer to every question, and I'm not a specialist in every area, but I know there are lots of people around the world who are. The other reason I started this community is because so many people were emailing me questions about how to do this, that, and the other, what music would suit this student, and all this kind of stuff. And if I replied to every one of those emails, of course, it's great for the person who's asked, but no one else can benefit from it. So what I decided to do is stop answering questions by emails and start answering them in the community, where everyone can contribute and everyone can benefit from it. So the kinds of things that you can find in here are courses. So I've got the blues course, which I'll show you more of in just a second. My Piano Flicks teaching pop piano course. There's tech videos about how to use technology. There's a lesson plan, PDFs. We've also got the forums. Now, I know many of you are on Facebook groups, right? As am I, but I find that there's two problems with them. One is I'll go on there to check out the forums and I will waste at least half an hour, maybe an hour, most times, while I trudge through my news feed and stuff. You know, Facebook is so addictive and they're great at keeping you engaged on stuff that might not be what you're there for. And the other issue with the Facebook groups I find is it's so hard to find anything that's been discussed. So I've built our own forums online, which I'll show you in just a second, how they look and how they work. So it's a great place, a safe place where you can ask any questions that you want and get the feedback of the whole community. We're also actually in the middle of a challenge right now. February, we're doing a 4-week challenge for teachers where they get to set their own goals and journal as they achieve them each week. Give us an update. We get to stand on the sidelines, cheer them on, provide them resources and help where they need it. These challenges are the things that are actually changing people's teaching. And I know it sounds a bit cliched, but changing people's lives, because the challenges aren't just about piano teaching. I encourage people to set challenges in their life as well. Things like the amount of social activity they're doing, exercise, their own practice and playing, things like that. So important. And this is a huge benefit of being in a community like this. One of the other things that people find at the moment is this sense of overwhelm. There's so much information out there, and how do you absorb it all? How do you work out what to do? Well, the best thing to do is actually decide what direction you want to go in and then set goals towards that. And so challenges can really help with that. We also have all the the archive recordings of all the webinars I've done, me speaking live, keynote speeches, workshop videos, and our monthly mastermind. So each month, members of the community can get on a mastermind a little bit like this, but people can choose to come in live in the call with me and actually be on screen and have a chat, or you can do similar to what the webinar is and just ask questions if you want. And I've brought in special guests. We'll talk about particular topics, and it's a great chance to ask questions of the group live and get feedback about what you're trying to achieve. And there are some great little bonuses and discounts on software and music and training courses and things like that, which I've organized with suppliers, and they are special and exclusive to the InnerCircle members. So one of the first things you probably want to check out if you jump on board today or in the next couple of days is the blues course. So the full course is, as I say, 10 lessons. So I go into more left-hand patterns. You've actually got the lesson plan for that sheet with you today when I give you the bonus link. In lesson 4, we talk about more improvising licks and slides, ways to make kids sound even cooler. Kids love doing that. We talk about playing the blues in other keys. We add sevenths and ninths like this to chords. We talk about that style of offbeat comping kind of thing. So we start getting even more groove into it. I explain how I teach my blues walk-up, which is this. Which is basically my go-to thing. If anyone asks me to play the blues or make something up on the spot, I'll kind of do that because it sounds cool and it's pretty easy. I'll also talk in lesson 9. I'll show you about playing chords in the left hand. So that's moving chords to the left hand so that kids can improvise with the right hand, and that's great for when they're using a backing track. And I'm going to introduce you to some jazz lead sheets and how the crossover between the creative stuff we've been doing can morph into a look into jazz lead sheets, some of those standards. The other thing that most teachers love getting access to when they become members is my How to Teach Pop Piano course. And that's an 8-part video series that teaches you all about pop, how to teach chords, the technology to use in your studio, how to simplify pop music when it's too hard, how to arrange helping students arrange their own pop songs, and where to find sheet music. There's just a heap of stuff in there. That's probably been my most popular training course of all time from the last 3 years. So I thought, why don't we just take a quick look now at the InnerCircle so you can see what you'll actually get. I'm now in the resource library, and so we can just click on any of these topics to find out what's actually been uploaded so for example, these are all the masterminds. If I click on webinars, you'll see these are the webinar recordings as well. Technology videos, these have been very, very popular. So there's, for example, using Pinterest in your piano studio, interest about videos about hook theory. And here are what I call my over-the-shoulder looks at me using apps. And here's one all about using iReal Pro, which is the app that we've been using today. So the resource library is one of those places that I know people jump into first. This is the main community forum. This is where most people hang out. And you can see on the left-hand side here, this is a ticker of all the most recent uploads and resources uploads. So if I just skip to the top here, what have we got? So I did a quick win, what I call a quick win video about exporting audio from digital pianos and how to get it into GarageBand and record it. You can see there's courses that are coming up soon. Podcasts, the transcripts and videos and freebie downloads are all in here. Members don't have to enter their email anymore on my website if they want to access something, because it's all in here. And of course, there's the 12-bar blues course itself. So in this course, you can see on the right-hand side, these are all the different lessons in there. And you can actually just click here on this to continue where you actually left off last time, which is kind of handy. So if I click on this, there's the training video, and down here you can download the lesson plan. You can mark things as completed, and etc. So I'm really, really proud of this course. It's been very, very popular, and I know people are getting lots and lots out of it. You can also view back in the forums, popular topics. So these are some of the most popular topics. I might just jump into beginner ear activities as just one example here. So this is me asking questions about the kinds of things people do with their beginners. And you can see, so Bradley's uploaded a video of what he's doing. I've got links to various resources, etc. So this is the place in the forums that you get to ask any kind of questions that you want to. And you can see as soon as you log in the recent topics here. So Diana's 4-week challenge, she's set her goals there. Won't go into that. But you get the idea of the kinds of things that are in here. So as I say, I'm really, really passionate about the kinds of things that you can get in the Inner Circle. It's been so brilliant to have been able to put this together for everyone. And I know that people are getting a heap out of it. So just as a quick couple of examples, Rosemary here, she added some lab time to her studio and did a crossover period where 2 students would be there at the same time. She says the Inner Circle has helped me to increase my income while not needing to substantially increase my teaching hours. We all want to do that, right? And what about Amy? She watched the training videos, the PianoFlix ones on pop, music and chording, and is now helping her teenage students explore pop and composing, most importantly, with confidence. Colin, he had this in the first 4-week challenge, just blew out his studio numbers to the point he had to create a waiting list, and he's now onto some passive income streams we're helping him with. And Sarah's really been working on the business, the systems to grow and streamline her enrollments, which is great. I totally love Karen. I'm not sure if Karen's on the call today. She's really dived into music learning theory, which is an approach that we've been talking about a little bit last year. And she's done this great marketing work and has started teaching group lessons now. And finally, Rachel, she used the last 4-week challenge to introduce group voice teaching as well as piano and attracted 45 new students. And so is building her income. So guys, look, if you're on this call, chances are you're interested in more information about this kind of stuff, not just the blues, but just the idea of being able to get all these great resources. And the charges are in US dollars here, $39 a month or $399 annually. But for those of you on the call today and for the next 72 hours, I'm offering you guys a discount, $29 a month or $299 a year. So if you're in the UK, I know Brexit has hit a little bit hard. The US exchange rate's a little bit challenging. So hopefully this will make up for it over in the UK. Also great for us Aussie, well, for everyone, let's face it. I mean, $29 a month, you could pay for one course, or you could get all my courses forevermore here ready for you. Okay, I've also got a 30-day money-back guarantee, by the way, everyone. So if you really don't like what you find when you get in there, I'm not going to force you to stay. You can ask for your money back if you need to. So it really is very low risk. If you're interested, I'm just going to get to the Q&A in just a moment, but I want to tell you that if you're interested in getting this discount, you'll need to go to timtopham.com/go. And that'll take you to a page that looks like this. I'll show you just step by step what you need to do, because I know it can be a little bit confusing the first time, particularly if technology isn't your first language, so to speak. On the page that Go link goes to, you'll find a pricing table like this. You'll see the price listed here, and you'll see a coupon code. You'll need to choose either whether you want monthly or annual. Remember that annual will get you 2 months for free, so it's a pretty good deal. You'll need to just copy that coupon code. So in this case, it's BluesWebM for monthly, or BluesWebA if you want an annual membership. And then you can just hit the Join Now button. A pop-up will come up, and you'll see that it actually says $3.99 a year. Don't worry about that. You need to put in the coupon code down here first. Choose how you'd like to pay, and then you can click Continue to Payment. Okay. So that's the best way for me to help you in an ongoing capacity. If you found this training interesting and you would like more information, then please head to timtopham.com/go. And I know that quite a few InnerCircle members on the call too today. I can see some of the chat that's coming up. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for being a part of the community. I'm so proud of every one of my members doing great things. All right, so we're ready for some Q&A. So if you've got any questions about the 12-bar blues, or about membership for that matter, whatever it is, time to type a question in the question box. I'll be ready and waiting. I'm going to take a very quick drink of water while you think of the question. Hang on. One of the questions I do get asked a lot, just while people are having a think, if they've got any questions about what we're talking about today, is regarding the left-hand patterns, right? This walking base idea is really only one of many ways that you can approach this kind of teaching. Another great left-hand pattern that I like that's very, very simple is just a descending baseline. And I know Paul, who's on the call, we've talked a lot about this in our trainings that we've done. A great descending baseline for the 12-bar blues: C, B flat, A flat, and G. And if students want to do this, they can easily improvise along to that. Well, easily, I shouldn't say easily, because students will find that difficult. When it comes to trying to do either a walking bass and improvise at the same time is difficult, students will oftentimes find that their right hand will put them out of sync in the left hand, right? You may have experienced this. So they'll kind of, they won't be able to do it in sync. So again, what I would recommend is that you just go back to basics and just aim for one note at a time, right? So they could do this with the descending line. Maybe a couple of notes. I'm going a little bit too fast there, but to get the idea, again, whatever it is for your student, just keep it as simple as you can. And one note per one note in the left hand, most students can do that reasonably easily. Okay, so I've just got some questions here. Daniel, have you heard if your paper has been accepted for the APPC? That's the Australian conference. No, I haven't, Daniel. There's a few presentation ideas that I've put in there, so still waiting to hear back from the team there. What else would be covered in a year? Highlights, Marina's asking. As per the rest of the course, Marina, I go into more detail about adding sevenths and ninths and extensions to chords. We talk about offbeat comping, working in different keys, exploring different licks and slides and things in the right hand, my blues walk-up pattern, and then we move on to lead sheets. And so as an extended kind of process, looking at lead sheets is the next step to go with this whole idea. And that's the topic of another whole webinar and training course, of course. So I hope that that covers things there. What do you do with a kid? This is Kate. What do you do with a kid who doesn't seem to have any rhythm? Well, the best thing for students who struggle with rhythm is to use backing tracks or play along to them as much as you possibly can. Oftentimes, students don't have rhythm or don't seem to get rhythm because they've been pushed too fast to play rhythms on the paper and they haven't absorbed them in their body. we really need to work more on rhythmic patterns and ideas in our teaching before they play and before they play written music. So for students that are struggling with rhythm, I think you'll find, Kate, that when they use the backing tracks like the ones that I've shown you today on iReal Pro, they will get in the groove. It's pretty hard not to, particularly if you've got a sound system, to keep in time with that beat. And again, just simplify. If they're having trouble, simplify to the most basic structures that you can to keep them in time. Maybe get them to clap along. I'm moving more and more to asking students to sing along as well, even if they're just mouthing or just kind of vocalizing the rhythmic sounds. Da da ba da ba da ba da ba. I mean, these are common kind of jazz feel patterns. So get them to say them. Do be do ba. Do a do a. Like, it doesn't even matter what words you use. Kids are going to think you're a little bit crazy, but it's amazing the impact of being able to say something or sing it and then being able to play it. So that's my suggestions, Kate. Alice, how do you find the balance between this and classical stuff for students who do enjoy the classical stream but want more? Well, I am very much an all-round kind of a teacher. So I will teach classical, I'll teach composition, jazz, all different styles to most students. I do have a few students who are very classical and they tend to like jazz, maybe, and others who don't want to do any pop. They really love romantic music, and that's cool too. But for me, in lessons, it's about finding balance, and it's also about knowing which direction you want to go. You'll find that if you are passionate about keeping your students playing long after they've finished lessons with you, then you'll be able to make that time that you need to do things like this in a lesson. Amy says, I hesitated to join the InnerCircle because of the cost, but realized it's just little more than one lesson. Yeah, I think you should bite the bullet, Amy. As I say, full money back guarantee. So if you're not in there, not liking things, then you're welcome to let me know. And Susan says, one note at a time for those who are really scared can literally be the same note over. Totally, yeah. If they're finding the improvising hard, maybe one note is all they need on the beat. You know, keep it as simple as they need to. Great. I can see people saying, yep, awesome. People are going to use this, which is really, really good. Melanie, does the InnerCircle have stuff on music learning theory? We do. We've talked about it a lot. I did a whole month of it on the blog and the podcast last year. So there's definitely links available to that. And we did a full mastermind on music learning theory last year. So that could be useful. Will you cover other styles or just the blues, Marina? I'm planning to, just so that you guys know, future webinars coming up. Teaching beginners with no music. My no book beginners is definitely another plan for a webinar coming up soon. Resources for that. And also the way that I teach composing in a pop style, so a non-jazz genre, is something that's definitely up my sleeve as well. What else have we got? Good to hear these comments, guys. Thank you. Keep them coming. If you've got any questions, I'm going to be wrapping up pretty soon, so do let me know. Josie says rhythm can be enhanced with stuff away from the piano, percussion with backing tracks, rhythm cups. Yeah, absolutely. Wendy Stevens' rhythm cups are great for rhythm. Leela Viss has a great bucket drumming series as well. There's lots and lots of things you can do for rhythm. It's one of those fundamental things that unfortunately many of us don't give enough time to. So I do encourage you to seek out other solutions for that. It's the kind of discussions that I love having with teachers in our forum. So when you jump on board, let's talk about some of these other alternatives for teaching rhythm. Love to do that. Jay says some students always play a lot of F and the C chord. Play a lot of F on C chord. F on C, this. Yeah, sounds like jump, doesn't it? However that goes, it's just what I thought about then. Leanna says, do you still use method books in your lessons or do you only use other resources? Great question, Leanna. I do use method books, but not for about 10 weeks for beginner students. So for about 10 weeks, I do completely creative pursuits, and that's what I'm building a course around as we speak, actually. So I won't give away anything for that yet. Then when it's time to do more reading stuff, I'm tending more and more these days, as people in the community will know because I've talked about it a fair bit, to Piano Safari as the best method. I know it's hard to pin one down, but I've tried many, I've written about many, and these guys, the Piano Safari guys, have come up with what I think is about as good as it gets. I love that they use composing and improvising. I love that it uses rote teaching, and it introduces reading. So that's my suggestion there. And Lindell, bio movie, what's this? Ray Charles has a great clip reenacting his very first blues lesson. He learns the first few notes of blues scales. Well, there you go. I don't know if you can find a link quickly, Lindell, and chuck it in the chat box. That would be totally very, very cool. So any free backing tracks apart from iReal Pro? With backing tracks, you've got, there's a lot online, right? You could easily find one on YouTube probably, or just Google for backing tracks for the blues if that interests you. But look, I love iReal Pro because I've only shown you one aspect of it, right? In there, with only one click, you can load up about 1,500 pop and jazz songs, the chords for them, and get students to play along with them. So it is an unreal app, and I've only just shown you one tiny feature of it. All right, so we've just got chance for a couple more questions. If anyone has them, please let us know. And Teresa just says here, with regard to cost, I knew the InnerCircle would be such a great resource. I added a once-a-year lab tech fee this year in lieu of raising tuition. No opposition on the parts of my parents, and I was able to buy subscriptions I wanted. Win-win. Hey, Teresa, what an awesome idea. I never actually thought of suggesting that to people. Yeah, for a studio of 30 kids and $10 lab fee or admin fee each year, you can definitely cover the cost of some subscriptions. Remember that getting a subscription to something like the InnerCircle is all about committing to your own professional development. And this is so important. You've got to look after yourself and your own teaching and playing. That's why I'm very passionate about teachers having lessons with other teachers. And if not that, then joining a community like this where you can keep pushing yourself forward. And so that's a great suggestion. Really appreciate that. How much does it take you with your 7-8-year-old boys to teach them to achieve a good level? Marina, I'm not sure what you mean. A good level of blues or a good level of reading? Not exactly sure what you mean there. So just feel free to just add to that if you'd like. I'm about to give you the link to the lesson plans and iReal Pro. Yes, it's about $13 US, so about $18 Australian. All right, so the bonus access link is timtopham.com/bluesbonus. I also recommend checking out timtopham.com/blues, where you can get recaps on these first 2 lessons for free. So the first two lessons in my training course that are inside the InnerCircle, you can grab 100% free on that page without entering emails or anything like that. That's on timtopham.com/blues. But if you want the lesson plans, as I mentioned, and the certificate, then you can head to timtopham.com/bluesbonus. All right, so I think that's it, everyone. It has been so much fun. Thank you very, very much for joining me today. Look, I do realize it's a bit of an awkward time in Europe, but hopefully those of you in the States, if you're on and not watching the Super Bowl, and those of you in Australia have enjoyed this. I've thoroughly enjoyed putting it together for you. And I really look forward to catching up with you in the InnerCircle. Now, last quick question. Did you get a win today? Just give me a yes or a no in the chat box now. You've got like 3 seconds. Let me know if you did get a win today. I really, really hope that you did. And that you'll definitely check out those links that I've given you. So timtopham.com/blues and Blues Bonus. And also, if you're interested in joining the community, you can find out more about it at timtopham.com/go. Oh, look at all these yeses coming in. Thanks, guys. I really, really appreciate it. It makes my day that I've been helpful for you. So I will see you all in the InnerCircle. Really looking forward to getting to meet many of you there. And until then, I will sign off and say enjoy the rest of your day or evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks very much, everyone.